right, so what's the timeline here? In a 6-month program, you are going to learn the skills that you need. You're gonna be part of matching and workshops so you could work on a team. And we're gonna really match you with teams that work best for you. Now, that doesn't mean that you're gonna be working on teams that are exactly like you. What we want you to do is learn to strategize on a team that is different. We want you to look at, how are you gonna work with someone who is, very process oriented, very much a decision maker, very fast, someone who might be very detailed. We need all these people on a team. And when you can learn to be flexible, to learn to work with and embrace, and also recognize everybody's strengths, that's gonna make you a more powerful leader. And how are you gonna communicate with these people? How are you going to lead your teams? How are you gonna participate and get things done? You're gonna have homework and group discussions to do this. So that's what the real world piece is. You're going to be sitting in directors meetings, you're going to be pitching and presenting, and people are going to give you feedback on this. So you are going to go through real world simulations, and what you're getting is the education of not only your MBA and your experience, but we're doing it all in one condensed program. So you're going to walk away with skills that will plug you in and get you ready to become a founder when you're done. Now, after the first 4 months of online program, you're also going to come to New York City, and you'll get to see our offices in a little while, but you're going to come here. And as the world opens up again, which it is starting to do, we're going to see more and more meetings and collaborations that are going to be taking place live. So you'll have the opportunity to do that. Now, we do work with the accelerator, and we find that this part of the program is invaluable. There's a lot you can do online, but there's some things you just have to be here for. And it helps you concentrate, it helps you learn. When you sit down and meet with someone, it's just a different way of communicating. So we're gonna make sure you have all of that when you're part of our school. Forgive any technical difficulties. Every now and then my mouse jumps around, I'm not sure why, but forgive me. Okay, so the goals of this workshop. Right now, one of the things everybody's talking about is soft skills and communication. Now, I know what some of you are saying, we're business leaders, I have already worked in the business sector, I know how to communicate, but it does change. It changes from country to country, it changes from sector to sector. So maybe what you're used to doing might change a little bit when you come here, when you're leading a team in the US versus when you're leading a team in your home country. So what we're gonna start to talk about today is how you're connecting your voice and your culture. So how you're using your voice, does it change? And my role here is I am the communication coach and I am the program director of the School of C. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to be helping you to plug into the correct mentors. I'm going to be making sure that you're matched with the right people so that you can, have the right skills. My name is Patti, and I've been working with Start Adventures now for a few years. And I've actually worked with the accelerator since batch 2, and now we're in batch 10. So I have a lot of experience with international startups. They all have all different sorts of needs. Sometimes you have someone who's very numbers oriented, and how are you gonna really deliver complex information? Maybe you have someone who's in media, who knows how to present, but might need a little polish, or they might need to learn how to take a big stage. How are you representing data so that there's story attached to it? When do you need what? And again, it shifts from culture to culture. So my work with a lot of the founders here, and through my work, we've developed all of these programs. We've seen what people needed. And I think that's the important part is, we do this every single day. And again, communication is a key piece in fundraising, in selling, in connecting with new clients. So you're going to have to learn to do this, and you're going to have to learn to adapt your style to many different new audiences. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, but we're going to start to think about both. It might change a little bit, like I said, from what you're used to conveying. And then we're going to meet our program manager, Bobby Allen, who is also going to be talking a little bit about body language. Bobby's going to introduce himself in a little while. There he is, he's on screen. And you're going to get to hear from him. Bobby has an amazing background. He has an acting background. So he's going to bring you all that presence, that body language and presence. My background is that I have a master's in speech pathology. I studied linguistics, and I also studied intercultural communication. And I look at how culture impacts communication and how voice impacts communication. So you really can't take the voice out of the message, really can't take your beliefs and what you believe a great message is out of you. So there's no right and wrong way to communicate. I just want to let you know that. This is not about you changing and you becoming someone else. It's about how you build flexibility. It's how you become a more powerful leader. So let's hope this mouse works. All right, so what I am going to show you is a past founder of ours. And these are all different videos that you can find, but we're going to show you a past founder and how he started and then how he was able to do his demo day pitch just after he was coached. So we have a 3-month coaching program in the accelerator. And like I said, we've modeled a lot of our needs. We've taken the best practice. We've taken what the founders needed and really put it into the coaching program. When I design each coaching program, it really is about your group and the needs of your group. And you're going to see a little bit later some live coaching, so you'll get an idea of what you'll get when you come here. And it really does change the game. So I'm going to play one video. Let's hope this works well. And you'll see a big difference in this person. Background on this person, he is the CTO. He is not someone who's used to presenting and pitching. He is the engineer. He's that brain behind the operation, but his favorite thing was not getting up in front of a crowd. So you're going to see a real difference in how he was able to use energy, use his voice to present to investors and his clients.
I'm Eugene. I'm CEO and founder at Paxos. It's a platform for to extract unstructured data from websites and visualize without developing.
Did you know that the amount of data is growing by more than 30% per year? And about 80% of the data is unstructured. Collect and structure a large amount of data is too expensive, long, and not scalable. Do you know about Honey? They have collected products from Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, and other websites. 2 weeks ago, PayPal paid $4 billion for Honey. Here's what we do.
All right, so you saw a big difference there. And again, everybody's goals are different. So when I meet you, when we sit down, when any coach meets you, these goals are going to be designed for you. We're going to be thinking about who you are, what your personality is like. There is no one size fits all for coaching. I usually sit down and I have to assess what the needs are of the person and then how they need to pitch. So again, you're not coming here to be in a cookie cutter program. This program is highly, highly developed around you, the skills you have, and how to make them better. So we're here to up level what you already have and create flexibility so that you can work in a new market, in a new culture, sometimes in a new language, which seems like it's super easy, but sometimes it can be a challenge. Even when I have founders that come here or business people, because I do coach business people in corporate, they come here and they're really experienced, but when they actually come here to New York, and they're standing in front of a crowd that is, let's say, an English-speaking crowd or a crowd that might be asking a lot of questions during Q&A, the game changes a little bit. And you might feel like, okay, I need to be able to give a little more energy. I need to understand how I'm presenting. How we perceive ourselves when we communicate can be different from what we're actually how we're actually perceived by the audience. And we're going to talk about that. How does it change? What do we think of ourselves when we're standing up there? What do we think the audience sees? And what happens in between? Are you able to think on your feet? Are you able to give the audience the message that you want to give? Is it landing? And we're going to talk a lot about that today. Whoops. And as I said, bear with me on technical difficulties. Live streaming is always so much fun. All right, so now I'm going to introduce you to Bobby Allen, and he has a lot to say. Bobby.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Bobby Allen. I'm also the program manager here for the School of C. I'm a professional actor, professional musician, and a producer here in New York City. And I know a lot about the industry in New York City from the artistic side, but I've just been now getting into helping out and coaching here for the accelerator program on basically a little fun. One of the workshops I do is a fun improv class that helps you break out of your shell, because so much about presenting is about being open and being fun and being like impulsive. And so I try to sort of help that get out of the participants. And we're going to be like infusing a lot of that into the program for School of C as well. So here we have, so we connect you to the world. So when you leave the School of C, you are ready to take on the real world challenges with the leverage of our ecosystem and infrastructure, right? And wait, hold on a second. And when we give you the tools and community that provide the blueprint for success as an entrepreneur and founder, you are building your resume not through theory, but in the real world with hands-on experience and proven traction on US market. Yes, so there you go. So we are, that's the goal here, is to connect you guys to the world so you can pitch not only in your ecosystems, but also in the American ecosystem as well.
All right, thanks, Bobby.
Okay.
And Bobby and I work together pretty closely. We've done quite a few projects together. We've created video content together. So we understand how to work with each other and how to work with the founders. So we've run these programs, again, through the accelerator. So we know they work. And when we work with you, these are going to be up-leveled. These are going to be designed for you. And not only Bobby and I, but all the other mentors that we're bringing on, whether it's sales or whether it's mindset or how you have to deliver, you're going to be connected to, how you develop your business plan. How do you really create business in the US? And you're going to be learning all that through this school. So this is a really accelerated program. You're getting plugged in to accelerate your skills in a 6-month time period. And it's going to be intense. There is time commitments. There is commitments from you that are you're going to have to meet. It's going to be about 10 hours a week, at least, on your part. You're going to be working. You're going to be putting your time in. Now, we know that you're busy entrepreneurs, and that's what we've designed this for. We designed this for the working entrepreneur, the working business person who has, possibly a job or a company of their own, but we are working with you to design this so that it's doable with what you're doing now. And we take all that into account. This is designed for the professional. This is designed for someone who has some skill, who has the experience, and now wants to plug it in to the startup ecosystem. So why does communication matter? In this sense, when you're speaking to an audience, why does any of this matter that we're talking about today? The first thing I want you to think about is the tone of your delivery. So sometimes it's very easy from culture to culture to misunderstand each other. And this is where voice and your choice of words comes into play. The tone is going to give you the feel of the message. It's how you're connecting to people. Sometimes we're a little too direct. We land very fast, okay, I'll do that. And depending on who you're speaking to, it could be taken, fine, or someone might take it personal. And sometimes you have these little miscommunications and you're not sure why. You could be someone who gives a lot of information up front. You're a storyteller, you're a talker. You could be someone who says, no, boom, 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 this is exactly what I want. You're someone who might give a lot of data or numbers, or maybe you mix it up. But you want to start to know, am I being overly direct? My choice of words, what are they? As this is landing, is there a misunderstanding? I was working with a team the other day, and it was a Russian team or Russian group interviewing a Brazilian for sales. And there was a big misunderstanding there. The Brazilian, who's very used to a lot of warm dialogue, a lot of movement, a lot of connection during the interview, felt like when she was being interviewed that it was too sharp, it was too quick. She felt like it was a little rude. And honestly, the Russian team was actually very surprised because they thought they were giving it their best shot at making this person feel welcome. But because of the delivery, because of the tone, there was a mismatch between them. There was a miscommunication. Now, not only are you going to be working in the US, but you are going to be working probably globally at some point. The world is small now. We're on this medium constantly. And I'm sure many of you are used to this, but we want to make sure how we adjust. How are we reading not only, the audience, but how are we adjusting it in ourselves? Bobby is going to go into some body language and, what it actually means. Do we sit here with no facial expression, no body language the whole time, with our voice low, with our volume kind of low, and with our energy kind of low? I could do this. I could be very serious, but that's not going to communicate what you're going to need to do, especially here. So here, what we've seen a lot when we have investors giving feedback is, we'll have someone pitch And here in New York, what we do is we hold pitch contests both on and offline. And when the investors give feedback here, the typical, let's say, investor that's used to working here is going to say, I'm going to need you, I need you to give some energy or enthusiasm behind this. I want to know that you believe in it. I want to trust that you can sell this. And so these are things that they're going to actually expect from you to be able to convey. And what I tell people is, how are you marrying your voice to the words that you're choosing? So all of these things are things that we're going to break apart, not in today's, but if you come here, you're going to learn a lot of this, but we're going to break it apart. And today you're going to walk away with some actionable tips that you can use when you start to craft your pitch or even communicate. So when I have founders come here, some very experienced founders and business people actually will say, does it really matter? I mean, come on, I have a great product and I could sell it. So I'm doing fine in my home country. I'm used to doing this. I present to large crowds all the time. But then what happens is, they start to get a little negative feedback, or maybe they're not selling it as fast as they want. Maybe, again, we go back to the interactions. Maybe there's some interactions that they just don't understand, what went wrong there. And there are tools that I'm going to use in order to help you. So I was recently certified in something called the Global DISC. Now, the DISC is an assessment tool that actually assesses your behavioral style, your communication style. And some of you might have heard of this. This particular version actually connects different personality styles with actually different cultures. Now, interestingly, for my personality style, and this is not a big surprise, I came out more of a very expressive person, more typical of, let's say, Italy, Spain, Latin America, than actually New York City. I grew up in New York City. I've learned to adapt here and we learn to flex our styles, but my comfort zone is storytelling and a lot of expression, maybe talking a little too much when I'm nervous, so understanding what happens to you not only when you're at your best, but when you're under stress. What does it do to you? And those are the types of things we're going to start thinking about, when we really sit down and dig into your own communication style and why it matters, how you're connecting, how you're creating that trust between you and someone who's investing in you. So one of the things I want you to think about, and it might seem really simple, but is your vocal presence. And what does that mean? Your vocal presence is how you use this tool, your voice, to convey the meaning. There's going to be the words that you choose. That's very important. There's your body language. They say that your vocal presence, your voice, and your body language are actually much more memorable than the content. There have been studies. Albert Mehrabian did a study many, many years ago, and there's a pie chart on it. I believe it's about 58% of what people remember. Not what's important, but what people remember is the body language, the visuals, the smile, where you place a smile. And smiling is one of those things that actually does not translate culture to culture. Some people think that Americans are way too smiley, and it might be a little fake. When you come here, you're going to see a lot of differences in culture. And that's something that, again, no right or wrong here, but you're going to see some real differences. People might say to you, put a smile in there, put some energy in there. And how are you doing that without feeling fake? How are we practicing that within your comfort zone, but not so far out of your comfort zone where you're choosing words that are way over the top, that you're choosing a style that's so big that doesn't feel, comfortable for you. One of the things is that when you're speaking, when you're conveying this presence, you want to make sure you're clear. Now, everybody's coming from different language backgrounds, and we all have to use language in a different way. So let's say you're a Russian speaker. When you're a Russian speaker, you actually don't have to open your mouth so much when you're speaking. When you translate that over to English, sometimes the mouth stays closed. When the mouth stays closed, English tends to be, especially American English, British English is a little different. It's a little farther forward, and you can keep your mouth a little more closed for some of the British English dialects. For American English, it's going to be big. It's going to be round. You're going to, and I mean, people laugh at this because it's like, wow, very, I want or oh or eat, you're going to see these big round movements. You're going to see a lot more mouth movement and cheek movement, but it actually impacts the communication style. When you shape the words, when the words are clear, that's actually going to help you convey the message. If you're speaking too fast, that's going to be something that people notice. When you're speaking fast, it could convey some confidence. I could get it out, I could move, I could be fluid. But if you're speaking so fast, and let's say your mouth is closed, what happens? People don't understand you because you're speaking really fast and then your mouth is closed and you're going to talk like this and you're going to cut off words. So Also, if you use a very soft volume, especially on this, when you do these types of things, when you mumble, and which means you're not being clear, when you're speaking too fast, maybe when you're very flat, and this is one we work on a lot, where are you putting the pitch? Where are you fluctuating? Intonation patterns. Intonation patterns should not be different. Most of us are not monotone, but no one's actually 100% monotone, but we do have to have a lot of variations in pattern and in voice. Why? Well, the brain likes change. If your brain can predict a pattern, I'd really like to go blah, 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 blah. It's cloudy out today. It's a very nice day in New York. I'd love for you to join us. Now, that's fine, but it doesn't communicate a lot of enthusiasm or change. If I kept going like that throughout this presentation, your brain would say, I could predict what Lisa's saying. I'm going to just shut off. I'm going to check my phone because my phone is right here. And right now, we have multiple screens around us. We have to captivate people's attention, especially in this medium. And it looks like we're going to be using it more and more and more. So how do you capture someone when you're on screen or off screen? Is remembering, be clear, keep your pace at a nice even pace. Use some pausing. Use some pausing for emphasis. When you use a longer pause, it's going to create more emphasis. When you use a shorter pause, it actually just helps you to remember, and it makes it easier to vary your pitch. Emphasize very key words. I'd really like to do this. We're the first. We're the first to do this. We're the only ones. Make it stand out. Look at, let's say you're developing a pitch right now. Look at all the key words. Bold out things that you want to stand out and see if you could say them at a slightly higher pitch, at a slightly louder volume. So this is what we were talking about. You want to emphasize these ideas, these keywords, so that people can walk away knowing there's a few key things you want them to walk away with. People don't have great memories, and on screen we have less of a memory. So what are the key things? What do you want to bite size? What do you want to feed them? We want to know that we're the first. This is our traction. We've raised $50,000 last year, $1 million in fundraising. What do we want to walk away with? We have partnerships. We've created 20 new partnerships. And you want people to walk away with the information, the key ideas. They're never going to remember your whole speech. The key ideas should stand out. One of the things that I thought was actually interesting is actually an app called Trint.com. And what it does is actually transcribe your speech. So it's cool because you could actually, let's say, give a presentation, no matter what it is. You could be talking about yourself. You could be talking about your role in your company. But it actually allows you to see the flow of the words. You can see the transcription. So I thought it might be an interesting tool to share because, it's something when you're preparing, again, you really want to know what you sound like. So another thing for speakers of other languages besides English, so if you're using English as a second, a third, a fifth language, opening up the word. Again, going back to, let's say, some of the Eastern European languages, the vowels tend to be kind of short. So we were saying it's really big, but also the vowels in American English are longer. So when I say, if I read one of these sentences and I say you emphasize the vowels, not emphasize the vowels, emphasize it. You emphasize the vowels and you're creating a lot of stress on those words. You're also opening it up and making it more clear. You want to be clear. You want to be clearly understood. You're asking for money. You're asking for partnerships. You're asking to have, you want to lead a team. You need to be clear. So when you think about what you need some energy. You need some energy in your voice and your body. You need to be clear. You want to think about your message. Is it concise? You want to think about the confidence you're conveying, and you're going to convey confidence through all these things, through energy, through clarity, through your body language. That's how you're going to get up there and convey that confidence that people need to have in you when you sell. So if you are up there selling, and you pull your body in and you have a low voice or you're not making eye contact, yeah, it's okay, that's fine, I know this. I'm not going to be believing, maybe I'm the investor, maybe this person isn't the right person to sell it. Maybe he's not the face of the company, or maybe he's not the right one for this role. We want to convey all the skill you have matched with the communication skills. So we know you're coming here with skill. We know, you're coming here and you're the best of the best, but how are you going to convey that? And you're going to use all these tips to do it, and many, many more when you come. Another thing is, some of us tend to, when we're trying to look for the words, we tend to over talk a bit. So Now, again, going back to our communication styles, some of us are just more talkers. Some of us need to express, with words, with story, and storytelling is great, but we want to make sure you're getting to your point. And how are you doing that? Let's say you have a few minutes, you just did a pitch, and now you're in Q&A. So many of the founders that I work with, they have a great pitch. They memorize the pitch. They know where the cues are. They could deliver it. They could use the body language. Then they get to the question and answers. Then they have to think on their feet. How do you do this? How do you think on your feet and think of the words? So you want to make sure that you are being very careful about the words you choose, because sometimes we might be just thinking out loud. We might be speaking in order to get the words we need. We might be a little anxious too. And if you're someone who tends to be a talker, when you're anxious, you're going to talk more. That's just what happens. And if we know that style about ourselves, we want to start to think about, is this my personal style? Is it my cultural style? I work with a lot of people from Southern Europe as well. And culturally, when you think about certain languages, let's say Italian's a language that when it translates over, there's just a lot more words. There's just a lot more vocabulary there. So when you make the translation, it's, the languages, honestly, English is efficient, and I always say many other languages, Russian, Italian, Spanish, they're beautiful, they're poetic, but the poetry doesn't always translate over, and you're trying to find that right place. So how do you make it more concise? How do you make sure that these listeners, especially the personality types of your usual CEO, of your usual investor, they're going to want the bullet points. They're going to want to know, what it is, what's the point you're making. And they're going to want it quick. They're going to ask you, exactly what is your business model? Let me understand what you're doing. So what I have a lot of the guys do is prepare for this, preparing, whether it's a pitch or, Q&A. You're never going to have everything prepared, but start to understand a style. Think about and close your eyes, and I want you to picture it. Bullet points, write them out. These are the bullet points I want to hit. This is the flow I want to hit when I'm answering questions. These are my key points that I have to drive home. I want you to time yourself. I want you to start answering a question and then time it. How long does a minute take? A lot of times I have, guys up here who, and I'm pointing this way because there's a room where everybody pitches. But there are many, many people who pitch, and then they have 3 minutes to answer questions. So, one of the panelists or one of the judges will ask them a question. So we have judges in front of the room. They're judging the pitch. They're asking questions about the pitch. They want to know more information. They ask one question. They have 3 minutes. Let's say there's 3 or 4 judges. In this 3 minutes, they have to answer all the questions. A lot of them will take the whole 3 minutes on one question because they're not ready to answer that question, because they're not ready to break it down. Maybe because they don't have the vocabulary. So how long does a minute really take? Can you, if you time yourself, if you, record yourself, or on screen all the time, if you're on video, how long does that take? How long does a minute take? How long does 2 minutes take? 2 minutes take? Did you answer the question? Did you actually, give the answer? And if you didn't, how are you going to change that? How are you going to start to break it down into bullets so that you are answering the question, that you're able to do it in a condensed time span? New York City happens to be one of these places where the expectation is using very concise language, breaking things down. It's, some people feel like it's very transactional here. You sit down, you get into the business right away. There's not a lot of niceties. There is relationship creation. People, of course, do business with people they know. I mean, that's always, I think, across the board, but it's not as central here as it is in other parts of Europe. Here, I think it's a lot more about the transaction. People will do business with you, when you're good at what you do, when they see, something in you that they want to invest in, but they're going to expect you to be able to, give these key points. In an email, this looks like this as well. And sometimes it's a little off-putting. I've had founders here say like, okay, this email, there's no information here. It's like, yes, no, okay, thank you. Now, I'm not saying you should do it this way, but thinking about, again, I've coached founders and the emails are pretty long. They want to explain everything. Here, people are just not used to it. So they get these heavy content emails, and as much as it's hard when you're verbally doing it, equally when you're doing it in email. So you want to think about streamlining what you say. And it also makes it easier now to connect your voice to this. If you have smaller bits of information, you can connect your voice faster. Know your audience. And this is basically just what we were talking about. Who's sitting in front of you? Is it a group of CEOs? Is it a group of tech people? Are they in your industry? Can I use a lot of technical language, or do I need to really break it down? It's a funny way to say it, but people always say, pitch it like you're pitching it to a 4-year-old. how is it that they will understand this and walk away with the message? How is culture going to play a part? What we see sometimes is, when a founder from different parts of the world, Eastern Europe or Southern Europe, presents a deck, it's going to be really heavy up front with the credentials, your PhD, your background, your team, all the things you've done. Right now, we're going to be asking you to flip that. We're going to ask you to provide a little story up front. You're going to provide the why up front. And honestly, for a lot of founders, this feels like it's fake. How do you establish credibility? How do you tell people what you've done if you're not explaining, the background of what you've created? But it is a different way of pitching here, and it can be a little uncomfortable in the beginning. So your vocal presence, how you're conveying, keeping it brief. So really understanding, how are you going to connect with this person who has probably a short attention span and just needs to know the facts, and understanding your audience, who's sitting in front of you. The last thing we're going to talk about just briefly is how you're expressing your accomplishments. One thing I hear a lot is that Americans talk about themselves in a way that can sound arrogant or rude to the rest of the world. And, you work with European founders and you hear Americans saying like, oh, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And, we're the best at this, and it can sound really over the top. It could sound, like I said, kind of rude. There is a way to do this without going crazy. You don't have to, be, oh, I'm the best. And I'm the, this is the most amazing fun. No, it doesn't have to be that big, but and again, I think people have a reputation here for this, but when you do it, be able to express and be able to talk about your accomplishments. I was working with a founder from Northern Europe not that long ago, and she had 2 exits. She was brilliant. She didn't tell me any of that. So she was from Norway, and her way was, not to express these accomplishments, especially when she first met me. In the first few sessions, she wasn't talking about that. So we're crafting this pitch for her most current company, I wasn't understanding that she had already done a lot of this before. So, being able to talk about your accomplishments, being able to, talk about what you've done, and being proud of it is okay. You can put that out here and it's not going to be seen as negative. Again, you don't have to come to the table and make it big because, there is a point where it's overdone. I think sometimes what people do is overcompensate. You come and you think you have to be so big and talk about it so much that you overcompensate, and then it comes off sounding less authentic. It's again, all about your style. How can we help you use your style? So some of the elements here, when you see a typical pitch, and this is probably something you've seen, but we want to talk about a hook. How are you going to grab them? How are you going to grab someone's attention? Imagine the world that imagine if there were, we'll use an American example, imagine there were no more obese people in the United States. And I actually was talking about this with a health tech company. We're here to solve this problem, and this is how we're doing it. We might have a few competitors in the market, but, this is why we're different. Some people say this is why we're better. We have developed this kind of technology. This is our business model. You talk about your current traction, and you can do that here. You could actually talk about, what you've done, what your traction is. Talk about your team, but you don't have to get super in depth about it. We've had 20 years experience between us, or we have a brilliant team of engineers, business developers, and marketers. And you can talk about that, but it doesn't have to be as in depth as some of the decks I've seen that come from Europe, where you start off with your full bio of your team. You don't need that as much here. That you'll go into later, probably in your investment meeting. And then also, it is okay to have a very clear ask at the end of your presentation. What are you looking for? Why are you looking for it? How are you going to spend it? Because people want to know. People need to get to know your company, because even if the person sitting in front of you isn't the right person, they might know people. And one thing you're going to find here is that, and you might be surprised at this, the ease of how you're going to connect with the CEOs of large companies. You're going to connect with the top people. Why? It's cultural. New York especially, but the US is made on entrepreneurship. So the hierarchy tends to be very flat. You're not looking at, let's say, the higher ups as the higher ups as much as you might in other cultures. It's not a clear hierarchy. You have access to the top people. And it's not easy. I'm not going to say you're going to walk into the US and have access to this top person when you get here. But if you could strategize it, if you have the right connections, which is what we're doing, we're teaching you to plug in. We're introducing you to mentors and an ecosystem. You're going to sit with the right people so that you can plug into the people you want, sell to the people you want, connect to the people you want. And it's possible. And like I said, I'm not saying it's easy. It takes a lot of work, but it's possible. So it's a pretty normal transaction here. And again, knowing your audience, going back to, that vocal presence, that confidence, because you're going to be dealing with people, from the middle to the top to the bottom, and you're going to have to know in a networking situation how to connect to everyone, because that person that you might have standing in front of you, you might not think they can help you because maybe they just started at a new startup and they're not the top person, but they might know the top person. And you're going to have to connect with everyone. We are also going to help you connect with our entrepreneurs, real founders. You're going to see their pitches. You're going to understand stories. You're going to understand clear business models, and you're going to see samples of this. So when you come here, you're going to not only meet these people, but you're going to see their content. You're going to, embrace all the things that people have been doing. You're going to look at things and say, hey, maybe I can incorporate this in my style, maybe not. But I'm going to see how people did it. And these are the real pitches, the real things that worked, and also the things that didn't. What you're also going to hear about quite a bit is the failures of a lot of our startups. What went wrong? How to do it better. You're going to start to think about it in your own work. It's not all going to be just success after success. I mean, of course, we have to, move up the ladder. We have to learn, from those failures. And then when you're in those meetings, when you're pitching and presenting, you're going to pull apart and strategize, and you're going to communicate why. Why did this happen, and how could I do it better next time? So Bobby is actually going to walk us through some body language and the best practice of, not only how you use your voice, not only how you use the words, but now how you connect your body to that.
Yes, and I also wanted to second some of back up what some of Lisa was talking about, because as she was talking especially about cultural differences, especially between Russia and America. I had a funny story where actually when I was in Russia with my girlfriend and her friends. We were like going out to the country somewhere, and I was just being my regular self, talking, telling stories. Luckily, the group of friends I was with, they were very fluent in English. But one of her friends was sort of in the corner, like kind of like, just like eyes wide, just like looking at me like I was an alien. And I was like, after a while, I sort of caught this guy out of my eye, and I was like, I'm sorry, am I offending you or someone? He's like, oh, no. Your face is just so expressive. And something that just sort of like blew his mind. And that just sort of, so I wanted to back that up as sort of like how we have these like gaps between the way we culturally talk is very different. I think a lot more Americans are expressive because we have so many different cultures coming in and out. We have influences from so many different cultures. And I think for native Russians, seeing someone who's very expressive can be a little alien. And not to say that you have to be as expressive as me or, as Jim Carrey or something like that, but just sort of keeping that in mind, that I would sort of segues into sort of how you're perceived in your body language, how you sort of carry yourself, how you walk into a room, when you shake someone's hand, and sort of the presence that you have is very important, especially when you're pitching. I've noticed, and I didn't realize this until I started working with startups and seeing their pitches, that it's a lot like auditioning for actors and for other artists. You have about 30 seconds to a minute. You get right into the room. You're in front of the people that matter, and the point is to make them see your potential, right? You're selling the potential of your company, but the potential of you. Like people, I feel like tend to want to. If they like you, you're kind of in the door, because there's lots of good ideas of great companies and great entrepreneurs out there. But if you walk in there with presence and really connect with the audience on what you're saying, and that happens on a physical level, it really does. And it's not taught enough. We're taught both Western, Eastern, doesn't matter where you're from, Russian, American. We're taught very much to sort of think of the head and the ideas behind what you're saying, but not sort of like the whole body and how you're being perceived. So I just want to give you guys some quick tips to help you and also give you a taste of what we will be going into when we teach you how to use body language. Your body is a tool. I like to think of it as an instrument too, for myself, because I'm an artist, but I like to explain to people that it's a tool. It's a way we express, way we share with ourselves. So what's very important is keeping your instrument like tuned up and ready to go. Like getting in front of a group of let's say 50 like angel investors, and pitching is on the same par with getting onto a New York City stage and delivering a monologue to an audience. Your body needs to be tuned up and it needs to be released of tension. Because when you have tension, when you're holding on to tension, maybe it's an early morning and you just have this crick in your neck and you got to go in and pitch and you're like, whatever, I'll do it. This little knot in your neck is actually going to suck impulse. It's going to suck vibrations of speaking right up, and it's going to get caught in that knot. This is actually physically proven. So what's really good is, just sort of like before you do any big pitches, do nice shoulder rolls, roll your neck around, get really nice and relaxed, drop down and make sure that you have less tension, because tension can be almost like if you take a garden hose and you like cinch one part of the garden hose, water's not going to flow out. It's going to get stuck right there. So that's very important to be able to seem, and it helps you seem relaxed when you're in those pitches, when you're in those very important meetings. If you're giving off nervous energy, if you're tense, if you have a lot of tension, that makes the other person nervous. We pick up on verbal cues and body cues from other people. So if you're coming in very tight and you go to shake someone's hand and you're nervous, that all translates to them. Now they're feeling kind of nervous. So like this person looks and is appearing to be like tense. So it's just as simple as going through, like I said, some neck rolls, maybe rolling down your spine, rolling back up your spine, so that you just feel like you don't have any tension carrying on top of what you already have to do and present. Which leads me into my next point, which is about breathing. So important is breath. And I know that sounds like, but like what I was saying in those moments of absolute tension and like fear and getting up in front of an audience of people, your breath can get very short, and you could start just breathing into your chest like I am right now, and then you hear the quality of my voice now it's much more strained, and I'm taking quick little gasps of air instead of you breathe out and you're now in a full air, and that is so important and so detrimental to a pitch is taking time to breathe. I can give you a little actor's tip. You take sections in like your transcription of what Lisa was talking about when you transcribe your pitches, just put little check marks where you're going to breathe, because it's going to help you get to the end of a thought much easier. I see a lot of people breaking up their pitches in the middle of sentences because they're just not getting enough breath. That's very important. So just dropping into your breath, taking a second before you start your pitch. I know it seems like the second you get up there, like it seems like any 1 second break you take in your pitch, probably to you seems like a million seconds. Like, why am I pausing so much? Why am I pausing so much? Let's just breathe and then continue to talk. Like, it's such a great piece of advice that I can give. And also a very, very small piece of advice. I don't know if it's going to be kind of hard to do on camera, but I see a lot of wanderers when they pitch. People are like, so my company, I like to talk about it just conveys like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm saying when you're wandering around. It's really great. And this comes back to physicality. You plant your feet, you think down into your feet, you feel your feet beneath you and keep you in place, and then if you want to move to another part of the audience and talk over this way, and you want to move to this part of the audience, you move deliberately. You don't wander around, because I find that's a big thing that really helps people. And I think you could really see it. I'm really glad they showed that video, because you could see in both of those videos, like you saw in the first video from that pitch, like I was saying, he was very nervous. He was stuttering, had to look at his page, and he was wandering. And then the biggest difference between the first pitch and then the last time he pitched was that presence I was talking about. I want to finish on presence and connection with your audience. You are very present in the moment when you're really talking to someone. If you're just talking at somebody, this is my product, this is what I want, this is what they're not gonna listen to you. They're gonna shut off because you're not making a connection with them. If you're talking to one person, this is much easier because you just literally keep with them because you know your pitch. You don't have to worry about your pitch. Like if you've done your work, you don't need to keep thinking about your pitch and throw it at this person. Watch how it's landing on them. Make a connection with like eye contact is very, very important. So just like, and if you're in a room full of people, take a lesson from an actor. You try to connect with like many different people in the audience, you know, try to really check in and see what's going on with them. Because not only does that help like you feel what's working, what's not working, it makes them feel engaged to you. And that final video we saw, he was engaging and talking and making a connection with everyone in that audience, which is a physical thing that you can do because it's in your body language. You can tell when someone is dropped in and engaged, and that is very important.